What is going on, everybody? Today I will be previewing the 2024 college football schedule for Georgia Tech. I will go through every game on their schedule and I will predict which games on the schedule I think they will win, and I will also predict which games on the schedule I think they will lose. But before we preview their schedule, let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you'll love this channel, because we upload daily college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Last season, Georgia Tech finished with a 7-6 record. It was Brent Key's first full season coaching at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech had upset wins against Miami and North Carolina last season, and they beat UCF in their bowl game to end the season. Quarterback Haynes King had a breakout season, and Georgia Tech finished 4th in the ACC for points per game. And they will return 83% of that offensive production from last season, which is actually top 7 in the country. The offense should once again be very good, and Haynes King could get even better at quarterback. The defense really held them back last season as they gave up 29.5 points per game. But Brent Key took steps to fix that group, and he signed former Duke coordinator Tyler Santucci. Georgia Tech could definitely make some noise in the ACC next season. Unfortunately, they have a brutal schedule and they are going to have to fight just to make a bowl game. But next season could be a big learning step for Brent Key and this Georgia Tech team going forward. And I could absolutely see Georgia Tech pulling off an upset or two. There's a lot of solid teams in the ACC who could really surprise a lot of people. And the ACC is wide open, so I am interested to see how Georgia Tech will fit in that mix. But anyways, let's get into predicting their schedule. And they open the season playing against Florida State in a neutral site game in Dublin, Ireland. And if you guys watched the video of me previewing Florida State's schedule, you know that I actually had Florida State getting upset by Georgia Tech to open the season. A lot of people did not agree with that, but I do have Georgia Tech beating Florida State to open the season. I think Florida State will still be figuring things out, and I think Georgia Tech is going to come out hot with Haynes King and that Georgia Tech offense. I could very well be wrong about this prediction, but I feel an upset happening in this game and I have to call my shot. I do still expect Florida State to be a top contender for the ACC title because they will have a very talented team, but I like Georgia Tech to outscore Florida State and kind of catch Florida State off guard. So I have Georgia Tech actually winning this game to open the season, and I have Georgia Tech moving to 1-0 on the season. The next game for Georgia Tech will be at home against Georgia State. I do not expect Georgia State to be great next season. They rank in the bottom 4 of the country for return and production. They lost head coach Sean Elliott after 7 seasons coaching at Georgia State. They do have some decent transfers coming in. Zach Gibson could be a really solid quarterback fit for this Georgia State team, but I really think this team has a lot of negatives going forward. And I think Georgia Tech will win this game pretty easily because Georgia State just lost way too much talent, and Georgia State is a group of 5 team. So I have Georgia State moving to 2-0 on the season. The next game for Georgia Tech will be on the road against Syracuse. This could be a difficult game for Georgia Tech. Syracuse could be really solid next season. They only won 6 games last season and they got dominated in their bowl game by a group of 5 team, but they brought in some decent defensive transfers and they brought in former Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. Syracuse also ranks top 10 in return and production in the country. So Syracuse could be a team that makes some noise. I think they do have a decent amount of talent on the team, but now they have to put it all together and win the games on the field. I think this could be a closer game, but I like Haynes King and that Georgia Tech offense to get the job done in this game. So I have Georgia Tech winning this game and move it to 3-0 on the season. The next game for Georgia Tech will be against VMI at home. VMI is an FCS school and they are not that good. They went 5-6 last season, and this will be the cupcake game on the schedule for Georgia Tech. So I have Georgia Tech remaining undefeated and beating VMI. So I have Georgia Tech moving to 4-0 on the season, and there is nothing much to say about this game. But the next game for Georgia Tech will be on the road against Louisville. I might not be as high in Louisville as some people would be, but I do still expect Louisville to be a really good team and their defense will be one of the ACC's best. It's going to be interesting to see Haynes King and that Georgia Tech offense against that Louisville defense that returns 79% of production, which is top 7 in the country. I don't know how I feel about that Louisville offense because Tyler Shough is very injury prone. And the offense had a lot of concerns last season, but I think the defense alone will help them win games. I could see this game going either way, but I do like Louisville. I think Louisville has more positives heading forward, and they have done a very good job in the transfer portal, and their defense should be able to carry them to a win in this game. So I have Georgia Tech losing this game and moving to 4-1 on the season. Following their game against Louisville, Georgia Tech will have a bye week and then they play Duke at home. The bye week should help this Georgia Tech team reset after a tough loss, and I think Georgia Tech will be ready going into this game. I don't think Duke is going to be great. Losing head coach Mike Elko and quarterback Riley Leonard could really hurt this team. And if Malik Murphy completely overexceeds expectations, then maybe this Duke team surprises a lot of people. The defense for Duke should be solid, but I'm just not very high on Duke because of what they lost. They still could potentially make a bowl game, but I think Georgia Tech having this game at home coming off a bye week will give them a big advantage in this game. And I do think Georgia Tech is the all-around better team than Duke, so I have Georgia Tech winning this game and move it to 5-1 on the season. The next game for Georgia Tech is on the road against North Carolina. And similar to Duke, I am not high on North Carolina. I do think North Carolina is kind of at the end of the road with Mack Brown at head coach. They lost quarterback Drake May, and they rank 127 in the country for returning production. I know Max Johnson could be a solid pickup at quarterback, but he is not Drake May, and the defense for North Carolina is in complete shambles. Luckily, North Carolina does return one of the top running backs in the country, Marion Hampton, and it could help that offense score a lot more points, but I am still not very high in North Carolina, so I have Georgia Tech winning this game on the road and move it to 6-1 on the season. The next game for Georgia Tech will be at home against Notre Dame. This could be a game that has Notre Dame on upset alert. Georgia Tech will have this game at home, and Notre Dame may be underestimating this Georgia Tech team. But I am very high on Notre Dame, and I honestly would not be surprised if Notre Dame went undefeated because the schedule could potentially set up for an undefeated season to happen. Georgia Tech should still be a solid team, but they will get outplayed in this game in my opinion. Notre Dame will have a good secondary, and the defense for Georgia Tech will be too weak. So I have Georgia Tech losing this game at home and move it to 6-2 on the season, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game was a blowout. The next game for Georgia Tech will be on the road against Virginia Tech. This is a 50-50 game to me, but I think I'm leaning a bit more towards Virginia Tech winning this game because Virginia Tech could honestly be a top contender for the ACC in 2024. Nothing would surprise me with this Virginia Tech team. Virginia Tech is first in the country for returner production. They went 5-2 in their final 7 games last season, and they beat Tulane by 21 points in their bowl game. Now they return everybody, and they're going to be even better. Kyron Jones is going to grow as a more confident quarterback. The defense for Virginia Tech was solid last season, and don't be surprised if Virginia Tech is playing for the ACC Championship on December 7th. Virginia Tech will have this game at home against Georgia Tech, and I think that is big for Virginia Tech. So I have Georgia Tech losing this game and move it to 6-3 on the season. Following their game against Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech will have another bye week, but then they play Miami at home. And I do think this is another winnable game for Georgia Tech having this game at home coming off a bye week, but I do think Miami will have this game circled on their schedule. And I think Miami will want to win this game very bad. I expect Miami to be a top contender for the ACC Championship in 2024. They went 5-7 in 2022, 7-5 in 2023. They continue to grow their roster every year, and now they bring in Cam Ward, who is a top 10 quarterback in college football in my opinion. I honestly think Miami is set up to take that next step up in 2024 and have a great season. They could have been 8-4 if Mario Cristobal remembered to have his team kneel the ball last season against Georgia Tech, but I do think Mario Cristobal will find the knee in his playbook in 2024, so I actually have Georgia Tech losing this game to Miami and move it to 6-4 on the season. Following their game against Miami, they will have their last bye week of the season, and then they play at home against NC State. I think at this point Georgia Tech will kind of lose their momentum after 3 consecutive tough losses against good teams, and the second half of the season for Georgia Tech is really brutal. I do think NC State is going to be another one of those top contenders for the ACC in 2024. Maybe Georgia Tech bounces back and wins this game, but I do actually have Georgia Tech continuing their losing streak and move it to 6-5 on the season because I am pretty high on NC State. And Grayson McCall could be a very underrated quarterback addition for this team. But luckily for Georgia Tech, they get a break in their last game of the season and they play easy competition. I am just kidding, they play Georgia to finish the season, and Georgia may just have the most talented roster in all of college football. Kirby Smart is building the next great dynasty at Georgia, and they may just be the next Alabama, and I don't think Georgia Tech really stands a chance in this game. Carson Beck and that Georgia rushing attack will dominate the defense of Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech may just never beat Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs as long as Kirby Smart is coaching that team. I think nothing changes in 2024, so I have Georgia Tech losing their last game of the season to Georgia. And I have Georgia Tech finishing the season with a 4-4 conference record and a 6-6 overall record. 6-6 would be the same regular season record as last season, but despite predicting the same record for Georgia Tech in 2024, I do think they will be better in 2024, and I think that we will see progress from Brent Key and this Georgia Tech team in 2024. But unfortunately, they have one of the most difficult schedules in college football next season, so I do not see them winning a lot of games because the defense for Georgia Tech probably won't be that great. And to win the big games, you have to play defense. If Georgia Tech had the same schedule as last year, maybe they win 7 or 8 games, but the schedule is a bit more difficult in 2024. So I do have Georgia Tech finishing the season with a 6-6 record, and I do not think they quite have the talent to compete at the top of the ACC yet. I know I did have Georgia Tech beating Florida State, but that is one of the few big upsets that I have predicted so far, and I could honestly see it happening, at least in my opinion. But anyways, you guys let me know how many games you think Georgia Tech will win in 2024 down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for the video. Let me remind you guys to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel, because we upload daily college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider subscribing, and also consider joining my Discord server down in the description below. But that is going to do it, guys, and peace out.